نطلب من الحضور البقاء في مقاعدكم حيث سنكمل معا فعاليات المنتدى لهذا اليوم مع الحلقة النقاشية القادمة، ومن ثم نتوقف لاستراحة الغداء. أصبح مجال الضيافة من المجالات الحيوية في عالم الأعمال، وله أسس وقواعد توضع في الاعتبار من منظور إدارة المشاريع. الآن مع حلقة نقاشية يشارك فيها سعادة جيرارد لوليس الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة جميرة، والسيد تيري دالي نائب أول للرئيس قسم تقديم الخدمات في طيران الإمارات، والسيد بيل نائب الرئيس في WATG Designing Destinations. ويدير الجلسة الدكتور المهندس خالد حمدي مستشار المدير العام لشؤون المشاريع في هيئة الطرق والمواصلات بدبي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم جميعا. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to welcome you all to this forum. We're very happy to be here with you in this panel, exploring where the hospitality industry uses project management. As our promise, we are very diverse in this forum in exploring different fields. You saw healthcare yesterday, today hospitality, aerospace, crime scene investigations. So this is one of the fields that we are going to explore. And I think I have the best panel for this. I have three distinguished speakers from three different fields. His Excellency Gerald Lawless is the CEO and President of Jumeirah Group, Dubai's very own Jumeirah Group, one of the best hotel groups in the world. He manages its destinations. Mr. Terry Daly, Divisional Senior Vice President of Emirates Airline for Service Delivery. He takes people from destination to destination. And finally, Bill Reed from WATG Group. He designs destinations. So we have the three facets of the hospitality industry, and without talking too much, I will go on to Gerald and ask him, where does the hospitality industry, the Jumeirah Group, use project management? In which areas?
Well, I think we use it in just about everything we do, and we do everything more or less at the moment, from building hotels to running hotels, to running our own and building our own properties. But also we are responsible worldwide at the moment for approximately 15 hotels that do not belong to us, but that we manage. And many of these we've managed the whole process right from the very inception stage. And we now have a situation where we have over 20 hotels worldwide that are under construction, under development. So we really, project management comes into everything we do as far as the development and opening of new hotels, and particularly when you get to the point about pre-opening, which usually gets extremely detailed from the operational point of view over the last 12 months, naturally all the way through the process with design and everything, as Bill knows about. We're also quite involved, but the project management side of it comes into effect very strongly in the last 12 months. If you think about what happens in a hotel from the point of view of even purchasing the what we call the SOE, the small operating equipment, the FF&E that comes in through the management, the developers of the property itself. But without a good project management team, without a very clear process of what happens on a week by week and even day by day basis, naturally, as with a lot of project management, we take well, here's 52 weeks minus going down, rather than dates, as we've got to know over the years. The actual date doesn't always end up being the opening date of a property. But we have a very structured process of project management, particularly in relation to opening hotels, and indeed to many other things we do, which I'm sure is similar that Terry will tell you about as well, with things like a project, for example, where we look at bringing in a new product, a new service product. Just takes as much project management as, say, a construction project.
Sometimes even more, I guess, because it's the uncertainties and so on. So I think that's where I'm going to ask Terry from Emirates Airlines. Where does project management come into play in your part of Emirates where you deliver services? And services that I think everyone in this room appreciates very much.
In my particular area, it's absolutely critical, and I'm proud to say that we've deployed project management principles for many years now. The airline as a whole has a central project management office situated, I guess, in what we would call the consultancy part of the business, an internal consultancy, which is there to evangelize and promote the use of project management. I have my own office, project office, which is staffed by qualified project managers, and everything we do must go through those particular processes. To give you an idea of the scale and perhaps complexity, let's look at what happens on board an aeroplane in terms of the number of things that are on board. There are up to 1,000 different items that need to go on every flight. Not every flight has all of those 1,000 items, but it's normally somewhere between 800 and 900 items. On let's take a Dubai Heathrow A380, there will be 50,000 individual items that have to come together at the exact right time, sourced from across the globe, and delivered perfectly. Now, making that happen is okay when you're small, perhaps when you're moving into medium, but when you're large and more complex as we are now, it needs the discipline, it needs the attention, it needs the deployment of the right practices to make sure that everything happens perfectly.
Thank you, Terry. I think that we all experience that. It happens perfectly, so thank you. Bill, you design destinations.
Yeah. Ours is a bit different, our approach. We're basically focused on design, so we use the term design management, project management somewhat interchangeably. There's a lot of focus on creativity and innovation and how we do that. And since our products are all custom one-off, we're not able to beta test and these sort of things. We rely a lot on the transference of knowledge and sharing of knowledge amongst our teams. So in terms of project management tools, we've instituted ISO 9001 across the world so that we can share our design resources and talent between offices, and there's a commonality in terms of how we control the quality and deliver to the client's expectations or exceed those expectations. There's a huge need to accelerate the learning process of our team members as well, and so we've created think tanks within the group, and these are the young designers and design leaders within our offices who gravitate towards certain topics. We have one called The Field, which is environmentally based. We have another one called just the trends and so forth that are looking at trends in travel industry related areas that are tangible to our industry and trying to derive innovative ideas from that. And finally, we call it Project Journey. There's some others, but I think Project Journey is an important one because we realize in order to design, we have to have something that resonates with a certain authenticity. We have to ask the questions, why? Why are we doing this? Why another hotel in Dubai, for example? What's going to give this hotel a competitive advantage over the others? What is already here? So we're benchmarking, and we're looking at ways to innovate and create something that's going to give that property a competitive advantage, not only for when it opens, but for the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I guess from what I heard from you is that the requirements and getting the requirements right and making sure that you understand them so that you can translate them into an iconic design is very important. So I think that's where I'm going to ask Gerald is, how do you make sure that the project is successful? How do you make sure that you transfer the right requirements to your designers and your contractors and make sure that they implement them at the end of the day?
Well, for example, all of our senior management, like any other company, they have their annual objectives, but into their annual objectives are also the major projects that they're going to be involved in. And we have a process, the usual traffic light process of how we are doing in the different projects through our project management office, which will look at the ongoing progress of a particular project with a particular individual. And actually it's also very much implemented into the incentive program, the remuneration program of that particular individual. And these projects they're forever ongoing. And our own communication process, for example, when we got the go-ahead to develop the site, which will now be Al Nassim, just across the road here, you know, from our parent company, Dubai Holding, we immediately brought in the project development team, which are still responsible naturally for taking it all the way through. We meet on now every 2 weeks to ensure that everybody is totally aligned, especially as the project comes closer to completion with just 12 months or less than 12 months to go before we actually open. And like all of these things, yes, you need the science of the PMO, but you also need very much the ongoing communication process. And we have our deadlines, we know when we have to have things ordered, we know when we have to have things delivered. Even on other projects, for example, at the moment, we have 150 CapEx projects going on in the Jumeirah-owned hotels here in Dubai right now as we speak. And they are spread over the next year and a half to 2 years. And involves quite a large amount of money, but as you can imagine in a hotel project, we're constantly refurbishing and realigning and making sure the project, or the hotel and the restaurants and everything are actually fit for purpose and continue to trade at the level that we would expect them to trade. So these projects they're numerous, and we have our own projects department within Jumeirah that works through all the PMO science and doing them.
And I think the challenge is that you have to do all those CapEx and refurbishment projects with the guests in the hotels without disturbing them. So actually, we attest to that we are not really suffering very much in Minas Gerais.
We'll get to hot water, don't worry.
I will come to Bill, and Bill, what would you think is the most important competency that a design manager or a project manager for a design project is the most important? What is it?
Well, certainly experience and integrity, and I think they don't need to be, actually they don't need to be the best at any particular thing, they need to be well-rounded. And the people that we like to work with, both internally and externally, are those people that are facilitators, enablers, that problem solvers, those kind of things, people that can take complex projects, break them down into more simple, solvable problems, you know, and move on. So project management in a simplistic way is a bit like, if you're thinking about design and creativity, innovation is the expansive thinking aspect of things versus project management, which is more reductive and provides guidelines, schedules, budgets, those kind of things. The two have to work together. I mean, as creative thought leaders and design innovators, we could continue on doing this forever, and definitely we didn't have some structure around our projects. So that's what the project manager, a good project manager will bring to it. He'll bring structure and order, but also understand what other people are doing and their needs and facilitate that process to get the most out of people.
Well, Bill is very lucky, you see, in his business, because in our business we have to reinvent our restaurants every 4 to 5 years, and then we have
so they make money out of that.
That's tricky business, restaurants.
Terry, you told us a little bit about the project management office, whether it's in your division or in Emirates as in general. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, how it was created and what is its role and how does it help in making sure the operations are smooth?
It's an interesting journey because what I've found both here and before is that generally an organisation that seemingly is effective doesn't actually welcome project management to start with.
I see.
So I see it as going through a number of phases and its degrees of maturity, I guess. And there's, it's often talked about having, you need to have a strong leadership sponsorship if you're going to do anything. So I see the 3 steps. It's evangelize, so it's about starting to talk about the benefits of using a more structured way. And I don't necessarily see that as being constraining. I think it can be liberating to enable people to contribute. It's then about demanding, because you can evangelize as much as you like, but people still don't want to do it necessarily to start with. So you start demanding and saying there will be no project that happens, small or large, unless it goes through this process. So that's the next step. And all of a sudden people realise that you can't do it that way. So we've got to evangelise, we've then got demand, and then for me it's about proving. So when you're in that early stage, you start proving the output. And you start showing, actually, we've got a superb output here. It's gone right, it's gone on time, it's gone on budget. We haven't made too many mistakes, and therefore it's worked. And then gradually I find the organisation starts getting used to it. And they start off from saying, why do I have to go through all this bureaucracy? Why do I have to do this extra work? When actually it is the work. And it becomes part and parcel of everyday life. And I'm very pleased to say now that within my particular division, that's exactly what it is. People understand that, they know that. It's the way things are done around here.
I think that's excellent because you use the success of projects, the success that projects need to promote the use of the processes and the systems and so on. Gerald, have you found this reluctance, this resistance in, let's say, not in the development of the project, of the hotel, but really in the running of the hotel? The people who run the hotel are basically operations people. When you tell them to do a project and do it in a structured process, did you find resistance?
No, I don't think so. I think the resistance, very much as Terry is saying, is probably at even a more senior level, where people are saying, I don't want to be held to account by that, that I know what I'm doing and let me get on with it. And Terry is absolutely right, and I agree completely, that to have the proper scientific, logical approach to a project does really help to keep that project on time and in budget and actually execute it to the standard and the level that one is expected from the beginning. And as we get a multiplicity of projects, that becomes ever more important. And within the properties themselves, I think that the management of the hotels are well disciplined, and it's probably because the bureaucracy is already in place from, say, above the hotels. But particularly in a place like Dubai, where we have our corporate office as well as all of our facilities actually based here, it's easy to give the service. It's when you're involved in, say, developing hotels in countries where you're working on a management contract, but your contract clearly states that everything has to go through the management in terms of design and development, and to keep the the investors aligned to those contracts, and also to be able to make sure that we're putting the resource into these places as far away, for example, as Shanghai, and we have 8 projects coming up in China at the moment, 1 in Bali. So it does take a lot of logistical effort to ensure that what we say should happen does happen, and to follow through in that in a respectful way that reminds people who are the investors who will say, well, we can do it because we're the investor. Well, yes, you can, but you have an agreement with us to do it the way we've agreed to do it. Can often be quite challenging, but nothing that doesn't happen within the hotel industry generally, and amongst our competitors as well.
Yes, in everything there's a challenge. So that brings me into a follow-on question. If an investor is bringing in a management company to run the hotel, how early on in the process should they bring the management company?
We say, please, from before the beginning, because we need to be there from the beginning. It really expedites everything. It makes the relationship a lot easier to handle and to manage, and it also does help to avoid mistakes. And I think the research done by the investor right from the very first concept should involve as well getting advice on what kind of a hotel operator he would want. And I think companies like WATG are very good at that. I would imagine, will advise the investor to do the same thing, to bring an operator on as quickly as possible.
We want to understand from the start whether this is market-led or product-led, whether it's ego-driven or business, proposition, because it's a completely different animal.
Thank you for bringing that home, Bill, because I wanted to know, how do you ensure, as a designer, that the resort, the hotel, the facility that you are designing provides world-class service? I know that the management company is providing the service at the end of the day, but if you design a poor design, then they will have a lot of trouble providing the service. So how do you ensure the service quality from the very beginning, from the concept stage?
Well, from a design standpoint, we look at it often from more of an experiential standpoint, from the guest experience standpoint. They're the end users, so we want to make sure that sometimes the experience starts at the airport, but often at the front door when you come in the gate and how you're greeted and how you get to your room. That first impression is so important. And then, of course, there's also many, many rules of thumbs in terms of service distances and so forth for food service, laundry maids, the mixing, really the invisibility of service is an important aspect in hotel design. So we try and make it as seamless and as invisible as possible. I think also in terms of longevity of the hotel, you're looking at long-term maintenance, you're looking at number of staffs, salary, employees, that sort of thing. So if we're going to break those rules, if in the name of innovation, creativity, we're going to break those rules, we want to do it with the knowledge, full knowledge of what we're doing and with a partnership with the hotel operator, that they're on board with this, that they're willing to bend or break the rules for a greater good or competitive advantage.
Excellent. I will come to Terry and ask him, can you tell us what is unique about managing projects in the airline industry, other than other industries? What is there that is different?
I don't think the principles are any different. I think the principles you deploy are very much the same. I think each industry has its own particular challenges. For me, if I'm looking at, say, service improvement, one of the biggest sources of knowledge I can get is from the people doing the job. When you're in certain industries, you've got everybody there. I've got many thousands of people flying out there all the time. They're probably in Dubai less than 10 days a month. So harnessing that knowledge, that expertise, that feedback to understand what our customers are saying. I can't exactly walk the patch like perhaps you can if you're in a hotel. And making sure that we're listening, recognizing, and focusing on the areas where either we can do better or where we can innovate.
Yeah, so the lessons learned from what is happening, actually, this time it's not on the ground, it's up in the air, really is what drives you further, drives you on to improve the service and provide better service every time.
Of course, and the other thing I don't think many people realise is the skill and qualities we have within our cabin crew community. And we have a very large proportion, they've got 1, maybe 2 degrees, and we've got mathematicians, we've got creative people, we've got all sorts of backgrounds and skills, and we should use that. So how do you use that? What collaborative tools do you use in order to harness the energy you've got within your own organisation to constantly review, improve, come up with new ideas? That in its own right is a project on its own.
Let's see. Gerald, in the hotel industry, what is different? What is unique about projects in the hotel industry?
Well, in the first place, I would say we don't hurt our hotels on a runway at 160 miles an hour, so we don't have to take it off anywhere. So at least we're still on the ground. So that's always very comforting to know that. But I think what's different in, say, our diversity that we experience within the industries, what I mentioned earlier, is that we have hotels in so many different parts of the world. Hotels by their nature, and should be in my opinion, very much an integral part of the local community and the local scene that happens, whether it's business, whether it's social, and very much has to be part of what makes up a city or a village or a town, which then will vary according to each country. And I always say that a hotel is like a small town actually. We have every discipline within it, from engineering, the technology of it, everything we do within a hotel happens on a broader base within the city, within a larger area, which makes it very exciting actually for hotel general managers to be able to be involved from very strategic issues to very minute detail within the same hour, never mind within the same day. And it does make life extremely interesting, and definitely from a project management point of view, you have to ensure that you have a very broad scope of understanding from even a hotel engineer who wouldn't be just about the mechanics of it. He has to understand that everything he or she is doing actually affects the end user, the customer. I always give the example that you're working in a factory making ball bearings, say for car wheels or whatever. You really don't know who your end customer is. And success means the quality control people are not sending it back to you. Whereas in a hotel, you work in a kitchen, you cook a steak.
Yeah.
And you're going to know within 3 minutes whether or not you've succeeded.
Yeah, the feedback is immediate, actually.
The feedback is immediate, and it's almost like being on stage. You know, once you're up and the curtains open, you can't go off the stage. You've got to do your job.
Like our panel.
You've got to do it all the way through. So I think it's a very live situation. You mentioned earlier, you know, you're doing refurbishment of a property. At the same time, there are guests coming and going and staying in that property. It's not like an aircraft that you take into your engineering hangar and you have it there for yourself to do it. And I know you're time bound to get it back on the runway. But from that perspective, I think we are quite unique, and yet very much the same in that every single discipline you will find in a hotel, you will also find in a larger society or community.
So, from your point of view, what would be the most important competency in a hotel manager?
Flexibility. Absolutely not. Total flexibility, because you know you have to be flexible to be able to really work around the business itself. And you don't want to interrupt that. And we certainly want our contractors to be very flexible, because usually we get them to start doing a job and say, oh, you've got to stop that drilling, there's a very important conference on. I think people remember here, but in this room about a year ago, as they started doing the vibro compaction for Al Nassim, suddenly I was sitting in the audience and I felt this vibration going through, and I said, what is that? And I said, oh my God. Because I go running out across the road and nearly climbed up the machine and stop. So from that perspective, one has to be flexible, and we also need flexibility from the people that we're employed to do things as well.
Okay. Just one last word from each of you. Why is project management important to your part of the hospitality industry? Bill?
I think with us being in the creative field, without structure and guidelines and things like that, it would be that proverbial herding of cats, in a sense where, because we love to create, we love to design, and that's, for many people, that's kind of the end in of itself. And so providing the order and structure to the project in a way that facilitates and really helps the designers come to the solution, really, the appropriate solution for that project and within the time frame. It's what keeps, we'd be out of business if we didn't have project management, and we'd literally just drive ourselves into the ground. So we need it, especially I think the architects and creative people in our company need it. And thank God, I mean, otherwise it would be a lifetime, you know, we'd be working on one or two projects for a lifetime. So it's great to see things get built, that's the end reward, and be out on site and use the places and learn from it and move on. It's a great experience.
Thank you. Derek?
For me, it's about the growth and the incredible path we've been on and continue to be on, much like the city that we're all living in. I also think it's about prioritisation. We haven't really talked about that, which is before you even embark on something. I've often found that an organisation's core competency can be starting things. There's lots of good ideas, but deciding what not to do and prioritising and make sure you deliver well, you have to have structure and process in place. So there's no end of experts or ideas in my particular industry, but which are the ones you're going to go for. So that's why I find it so critical.
Gerald?
As both have said, it's structure and it's execution, but it's also defining what the end is like, and then you're putting through the whole process and the discipline and the structure of how you're actually going to achieve it, when you're going to achieve it, having your deadlines in place, your milestones in place. So it gives you the whole discipline and structure around how you want to deliver on the project. And as Terry said, then if you have a multidisciplinary project, it becomes ever so important that you apply the same discipline all the way through. But it does give the discipline, and it gives the accountability, and it clearly sets the objective of what you're doing and why you were doing it.
That shared vision, I think, is you're speaking to is very important.
Shared vision is very important. It has to be cascaded to everyone and known and committed by with everyone. Well, thank you very much. You've been very, very helpful in letting us or giving us an insight that we don't really know much about. We ride in airplanes, we live in hotels, but behind the scenes there is a lot happening. And thank you.
And the Jumeirah project team should be ready now as lunch.
Okay, thank you very much.